So welcome back to the Business of Building. Today we have a very special guest, John Gioffre, who runs Revent Builds. I'm going to have him tell you about that. He also runs one of the most popular building channels on YouTube with 45,000 followers, which is amazing. So we're going to talk about that as well. John, it's great to have you.
Awesome, Matthew. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Well, maybe just start. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Revent Builds does, and also maybe a little bit about your YouTube channel, and then we'll sort of get into some more specific questions.
Yeah, sure. So we are, a pretty high-end, like luxury general contractor here in Austin, Texas. We do everything from like kitchens, baths, additions, renovations. We do full-scale renovations of homes, and then we also build custom homes. And we do, we have a lot of crazy stuff. We're doing $1 million pool right now that's like 35 feet out of the ground. We have pharmacies that we're doing. We have #1 jiu-jitsu gym in the world. We're doing boat docks. We have probably $75 million worth of construction between, a ton of custom and spec homes that we're doing like on fire right now. And it does feel really cool. It kind of feels like all the work that I put in since I started this in 2017 is like really coming to fruition, but it's also like terrifying. I mean, doing stuff like we spent over $1 million last month just on construction, and it's like managing the cash flow, dealing with all of the pre-construction documents of just like all of our plans, like getting stuff through permits, dealing with architects and interior designers and engineers. It is pretty wild, but we're loving it, man. It's been really, really fun. And also like a big part of that has been the content creation. So we have a full-time videographer on our staff. So the cameras are just rolling 24/7. And, I just really wanted to like document this, not only for myself. I mean, it's fun. You kind of look back on like a video diary of what you've done, right? But other people, I like to show them the trials and tribulations. Like, it's not just like, look how great we are. It's like, look at all the problems that we deal with day in, day out. And that's a lot of the stuff you can see on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Well, let's start with, so how did you get into the construction business to begin with? Like, how'd you get started there?
Yeah. So basically, I played football at Rice University. I graduated in 2012. And then I actually went to law school. So I was in law school. And then me and one of my teammates started a real estate investment company in Houston. And we were buying homes in like 2012 for like 35 grand a pop. It was wild. These are like rough areas of Houston that are still really close to downtown. And we started, buying these little clunkers, and we fix them up for 15, 20 grand and get a tenant in. And some of them were on like housing assistance, like Section 8. And it was just like really cool. I just loved the process of taking something that was like in horrible shape and turning it into something that someone would live in, And what was good about the Section 8 rentals is it didn't have to be like the best house in the world. It had to be clean. It had to be functional. It had to be safe. And then that's how I learned the game. I was kind of playing general contractor while I was in law school, and then just fell in love with the process. And we did, I think maybe 2 or 3 homes our first year, and then maybe 5 or 6 the next, and then maybe 10 the next. And like before I knew it, I was finishing law school and we had like 30 or so houses, and it was really cool, And in that time, I bought my first personal home in like 2013, and then I renovated it. And that was my first like upscale job. And, that was like 150K. And what's funny is, we just did a kitchen for like 500,000, right? So like upscale has like all these different levels to it. Yeah. But it was so fun, man. And it was like, I got to pick out all my stuff, and I got to like design my shower how I wanted it. And like, it ended up just being so fulfilling, and like, really working with the trades. And like, I'm such a big people person, and I have like really high ADD. So like dealing with a new challenge every day, and then like, you're not in an office, right? I was just finding like, damn, like maybe being a lawyer, it's like exciting. I wanted to like start my own practice, but wearing a suit every day, like turning in briefs, reading like an unreal amount of papers, I was just like, I think real estate's what I want to do. So I met up with some pretty big hitters in the real estate space, this guy, Tim Heil, and then Gary Keller. And Gary Keller ended up being a partner. We were going to be this massive home builder, and I moved to Austin in like late 2016 to do it. And it was amazing. And I got to learn all the ins and outs of Austin, and on someone else's dime. And it was so great. I was like really insulated and obviously doing my best. And we did a few projects, and I met a bunch of my, like, the same guys that are with me today in Austin. They were working on me on those earlier projects. And then, like, in 2017, the market hit a plateau, and Gary Keller was like, hey, Keller Williams National Data, it's looking like Austin's going to tank. We're selling out of everything. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. Like, I just bought a house in Austin. My daughter was 6 months old at the time. And I was like, oh, crap, so we sold everything. And I was like, you know what? I love this. This is my passion. This is what I'm meant to do. And that's when I started Revent Builds.
Got it. And then when did you decide to start working the content piece into it, the YouTube channel, that kind of piece? Like, when did that idea come forth?
Yeah, so like basically I was always big into social media. I was really big into Facebook when it first started coming out. And then obviously it started morphing into Instagram. And I would just film things with my phone like all the time. And everyone was just like, dude, this is so awesome. Like, I want to see more details. And like, you should do this, that, and that. And I was just like, oh man, like, I don't know if I have enough time. And like, I had to grow my own business. And I think it was probably in like 2019 when we did our first project over 1 million. I met Derek, my now videographer, through Reddit. And it was like on Austin Jobs. And he was like, I'm a videographer and I'm just looking to shoot stuff. I just moved to Austin. He was like working as like a freaking waiter or something, which is crazy. And he went to film school. And I saw his portfolio and I was like, this is amazing. Why don't you just, let's just do this. We did these like one-off little shoots. And then I basically was loving it, but I just, didn't know what it would be like full time or if I could afford it. So I introduced him to all my friends. And then literally within like 2 months, he was a full-time freelance videographer. And then after a year of us working together, he was like, look, man, I'm working for like 20 different people. It's like super stressful. What if I make you a proposal? He's like, just hear me out. I'm like, okay. And then he wrote up this whole plan. He wrote up like what his salary should be. And that like, he basically pitched to me, let me come on full time. And he was so driven and like just such an awesome dude. And we become so close and he put it all together. He does all the marketing. He does graphic design. He does editing. He does all of the copy for everything. And we just made an incredible partnership and like just took off. I mean, we started filming everything we were doing. It's a big investment. I knew it would take a while to pay off. And now it's like, we're like, really, we probably started going full time, let's say 2021. So it's been like 4 or 5 years that we've been at this thing. And now the snowball's really rolling.
So people come to you now and say, hey, I saw you on YouTube and will you build my $1 million pool? Is that how
I mean, like, and honestly, it's kind of like that, right? There's a lot of people like in like far out places. They're like in California or New York. And it's like, we can't work there, right? But what happened was, is we had this house called the Modern Victorian, which is this house right here behind me in this painting. I designed and built it and it sold in like 23. We documented the whole entire process. And this house got like 50 million views online. It went super viral. I had like 400 showings. And basically all of these different who are now my huge investors on some of our like $15 million projects or we started off doing a custom home for them and they loved us so much that they invest with us later, XYZ. They started finding me through YouTube, Instagram, like all the content I was doing. And then it's just like another thing of, what do they say? Like someone won't hire you until it's like the 7th time they see you. So, you just hear of people like, we have a brick and mortar office now and like, they'll be like, oh, I always drive by your office. And then I saw your video of the $1 million pool. And, we have this thing on a pretty big slope and it looks like you can handle it. And it's just, it's just so crazy how all of this stuff, like, you put like a pie in the oven and like 3 years later, it's like actually starting to, blossom and rise and all that stuff.
Did you ever have doubts or was it all like, you were always pretty confident this would work?
Always doubts. I mean, you just wonder like, all it takes is like one job to draw out or you get into a predicament and you're like, dude, like I'm spending a large amount of money on video content that like, there isn't like a direct return for, right? Like if you invest in a rental property, you get X out and it happens like after you're done. This is something that literally like will not pay off. You can't quantify it, right? But when it pays off, it's huge. And basically I was just looking at other YouTubers like Matt Reisinger in Austin. He's got a massive presence and I've heard through my network that he's making more on his YouTube content than he is from building his houses. And I was like, oh my gosh, So what happened was at the beginning, that doubt was like really close to like me wanting to cut it off. But then the further I went, I was like, well, I've already invested like a full year. It'd be really foolish of me to pull out now. And then, you see your subscribers go up. Then you finally get monetized. And like these things start happening. You hear more and more people say like, hey, trust the process. This is like a 3-year thing. Like it does not happen overnight.
Right.
So of course, and I mean, even in building, like every day your house sits on the market, when it doesn't sell, you start doubting yourself. But being like an athlete and like playing football and wrestling and all that stuff, I just kind of realized you just realize how to like take those losses and like keep going. You don't really like fail until you pull out of the endeavor entirely, and I haven't yet, right? So I think I'm going to stick with it.
That's awesome. What's the biggest challenge you faced in building your business? Either the whole thing. What's been the hardest part?
I mean, honestly, I think it's just been like the sacrifice of like not being able, I have 2 kids, right? So it's like the sacrifice of like not feeling present at home all the time and like having to just like being so obsessed with my business, but having to like deal with these wars during the day and then come home and be like a present dad at night. And like that stuff that always eats at me and like where I feel like I'm always trying to do better. I think there's like a lot of the obvious like barriers to running a business, right? But like that is what it is. Like that's to be expected. But like really it's like balancing being a good dad and a good husband and like present at home and like just realize that there is a sacrifice I have to make, but you have to find those boundaries, man. Like I have these apps. I have this app called Brick where like I'll brick my phone and I cannot access Instagram until I get back to the office the next day and have my brick back, just like part of being like really good at your job is being like very attentive to your clients, but like realizing that you can be attentive in the morning. It doesn't have to be at 9 p.m. Like setting those boundaries. And that's been very nuanced. And I will admit I haven't been the best at it, but it's something that I'm always conscious of.
That's awesome. I focus on insurance in the construction industry. So tell me a little bit, building's pretty risky work. What keeps you up at night in terms of the risks of building, being in the construction business?
The other thing is like, I literally just call this crisis management. I mean, there's disasters waiting to happen at every single moment. At a certain point, you just have to like, my mantra is like, there's always a path forward. Like things will happen. If it is completely out of my control, you know what? That's what insurance is for. What insurance is not for is being a piece of crap and like cutting corners. And like, I mean, what's funny is there is insurance that will cover negligence, right? But like what you do is you hire the right people, you learn how to do things the right way. And like you go about these things all in the right way and just knowing that accidents can happen, right? But like what keeps me comfortable at night is knowing that we go the extra mile in like our waterproofing and our framing. And I have a structural engineer that checks everything. And like, if you're doing everything and you do it with like the right character, you just know that like stuff is going to go wrong. Like there's crazy freak accidents that happen, unfortunately. There's, unforeseen levels of rain that might affect the property and it might flood or like, so I have always like been way overcautious with my insurance. I feel like I do pay a ton, but I really feel like, if you have a $5 million project and something catastrophic happens, you want to be covered, right? There's so many people that just have these like sham policies. And it's like, dude, you're not only wasting your money, but the risk that you're in is just unbelievable. Think about like, we've had, when you do a lot of renovations, you have like, it's really tough because you might be keeping one room, but then the electric is active over there. And it might, we've had like smoking happen like for like a fire or like, you have like, you're ripping off part of a roof and there's water intrusion. I mean, dude, there's just so much that can happen.
You mentioned earlier some of the challenges around cash flow. It's always like a big challenge in the contracting business. How do you, any tips or advice for people on sort of on managing that piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier said than done because the thing is like when you grow and you're not ready to handle that, like if you don't have good systems in place, I've seen so many people go into business and go out of business within like a year or two, right? They catch like this, COVID's a perfect example, like such a great market. And then they scale up their business and they go from like one house or two to like 25. So like a big part of that is like understanding when to say no and like learning how like we're doing 75 million in construction because we have the systems to do it. I mean, I paid Buildertrend like $15,000 to come and do a white glove service to get our whole company systematized, right? Like we have absolute professionals at every level. And this has happened over, nearly a decade, right? So I think a big part of it is like really truly like biting off enough that you can chew or like knowing how to like chew what's here, put it down, chew what's here. Like, so that's the thing, is like being real with yourself, right? But even then, when you have such huge projects, the inflow and outflow is unbelievable. I'll be the first to say it feels like the water is here and you're like, So I got with a financial planner who put us on this system. It's called YNAB. You need a budget. And it's like Dave Ramsey's like cash envelope system. And it's really, really fascinating how this works. You basically make an envelope for like each expense through your company. And then you flush it all the way down into like your goals and like, wants and needs, all the way down to like, like an investment folder that it's like, oh, if we have this much profit, now we can invest in something or, buy a company truck or whatever, right? So the biggest thing that this system preaches is a rainy day fund, right? So when you have these wins, you fill back up your rainy day fund. And then when that spills out, that is when you actually have profit. So you need to look, and like in a conservative way, you'll have 6 months of reserves in an account that you will use when you need to. But when you start getting down to 3 months, that you're in the red zone. It's like, you got to realize. So a lot of people, they're just operating in like an almost like hand to mouth like way, right? You need to really be 3 months at minimum, 6 months ahead. And then more, that's the other thing. You don't want to keep too much in there because you need to like invest and market and all that stuff. But I think that was really eye-opening for me.
Right. And then of course that has to grow as your business grows, right? So what?
Totally.
Yeah. So,
because
we're probably a fair bit of time, like thinking about like kind of how your finances are going to look 12 months out. Like, is that?
So what's funny is like, I'm not really like a finance guy. I always partner with like finance minded people. But my wife, she's not classically trained. Okay. But she is the most conservative, like her mind will go to just like worst case scenario immediately, which I want to like grab her and shake her sometimes. But it's like, it's such a good balance to me. That I put all of that in her court. She deals with the higher level forecasting and like the like exactly not budgeting, because we have day to day like job costing that we are so on the nose on, right? This is more higher level than that. This is forecasting. This is like looking at what does it cost you day in and day out to run your business. So with her help, I kind of just rake in all this money and I throw it at her and I'm like, protect this, So she's been an amazing piece of that puzzle to put that together. And like, when we look at, we want to build our office, like you have to make sure you have enough money to do that. Right. Dude, it gets tough. Even when you like do everything right, something comes up or you have a crazy warranty claim that wasn't even your fault. And then you're like, okay, what's my reputation worth? Do I really want my client without AC, even though this guy's being a dirtbag and won't cover it? It's like, then you do the right thing, and it's on us to like foster that relationship. So,
Yeah. So when you look at, so it's been an amazing building process for you as you've built this company. When you look ahead 5 years, like where do you want to take all this?
I think looking ahead 5 years, which seems crazy, I think I want to be a multi-million, in the 100 millions like per year company. I think doing like really, really high end, like either like hotels, restaurants, and there's a lot of companies like Dowbuilt or Dalglish, even like companies like Schoberg or Arrowhead that like, you kind of look at them and they're these like massive organizations, and some of them, they're only doing probably a handful of homes a year, but they're super high dollar. They might do 5 homes a year and that's $50 million of revenue, right? Or even more. And the other thing is you look at it and some of these homes take 2 and 3 years to do. I see us like, I'm not as focused on like the top line as I am about like the type of projects that we're doing. And in this wave of like, we have these really amazing homes that we're going to be building. And some of them, we're doing like a 9,200 square foot house and rolling with like one of the most prime areas. That's a spec home. It could be one of the craziest spec homes ever built in Austin, right? So it's like, we have like 6 or 7 of those caliber type of homes. And then we have a handful of like 4 or 5 like huge customs for clients. So I think in the next 3 years, if we do what we've set out to do and we maintain our quality, I just want to be in that upper echelon of builder. What's funny is once you get there, you stop hearing about a lot of these people because then they start working under NDAs, right? You start working for like celebrities, and like Elon Musk is building a house in Lake Austin. You've heard nothing about it, right?
Well, I was going to ask you, are you going to build a Lon's house? So, if you were, you couldn't tell me, right? So.
Exactly. I'm not able to say. But luckily, truly we have worked for some really, really awesome clients and some movie stars and like some restaurateurs and just like some people making some massive moves in Austin. And I feel very humbled that these people like trust us with such, huge amounts of money for one, but just like such sensitive things of like, this is your home that you're going to raise a family in. And like, it's really gratifying to do all that kind of stuff,
Right. So last question for you, John, before I know you have to get back to the business. So, a lot of people, trying to build construction businesses, building businesses, like you said. What's your 2 or 3 like most important pieces of advice you'd give them?
Okay, I mean, this is like one that I need to practice what I preach because I have so many irons in the fire, and I literally have probably 15 or 20 different entities that I'm messing with on a daily basis, whether that's like an apartment complex or a short-term rental or rental homes, spec homes, like renovations, like, all of this crap, right? And like so many people in this like entrepreneurial age, they want to just like, crush it and start like 20 different companies. And I promise you, if you just have like, do one thing at a time that you're really good at and make like, see that child off to college and then go and start. You know what I mean? I know some people, and it's very rare, that have multiple different companies. And a lot of these people, like, if you find like a business that is synergy, it can work. But I promise you, what you need to do, like sometimes if you're like reading a recipe and you're making the perfect stew, it tells you to put the lid on that stew and let the thing cook. Just like let it simmer for 30 minutes. Don't touch it. So many people overlook that. There's just like baking the perfect loaf of bread. Like let it rise. Like do not touch it. There's so many people that want to get in and, bring it to the moon and sell it. And it's like, dude, that's just not realistic. Actually think about what you're doing. And sometimes the best course of action is to just like let it be. And I think that is so mind blowing for so many people because in this age of like instant gratification and like, so many people just get caught up with moving 1,000,000 miles per hour. Like sometimes just like focusing on making this one client 100% happy is what you need to do at this very moment. And there's so many people that overlook that. So that's like one of my biggest pieces of advice that I think is just overlooked. And then I think the other thing, I think I'm so just outgoing and I'm such a go-getter that like I've just snatched up so many opportunities, right? Like, and I've snatched up some bad ones, but I think the theme is like, in the same vein, getting started is so hard. There's so many people that they want to become an expert before they even start. And like, what an oxymoron that is. You know what I mean? Like, get out there and figure it out and like fail forward. In that same vein, like you got to figure out what it is you want to do. So you know what? Doing 5 things that you don't want to do might lead you to that path, right? So like, that's another thing I tell people is like, and I learned this from Gary Keller. He has this book called The One Thing. And if there's one thing I got from him, it's like this philosophy of like, there's one thing that you're doing that like they say it's like the 80-20 principle. 20% of your effort in this thing will give you 80% of the results. So like if you're just making pointless to-do lists, and you're going grocery shopping and you're checking off these lists and you think you're crushing it, it's like, no, man, you need to focus on the thing that's going to get you 80% of those results. And maybe that is just focus on what business you want to start. Just focus. Like you might be really good at pressure washing. Okay. Now all you're doing is focusing on like, how can I get more clients for that business? So I think there's like, simplification is massive. And just what I said, find that one thing and let it cook. Put all of your energy into that thing and get it to a point where it's really blossoming. So I think with those 2 things, fail forward and let it cook. That's the recipe for success right there.
I love it. Well, John, congratulations on all you've built in your business and on YouTube. And we look forward to seeing a lot more. And you're building $1 million pool now. Looking forward to the $5 million pool.
Thank you so much, man. So, I really appreciate you having me on, Matthew. It means a lot, man. Thank you.
It's been great having you. Take care.